You said you'd come. Now let's hope you're not too late.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Long talks. Long talks.
Talk just a little bit, just for the sake of it. Say what you think of it.
Long talks. Long talks.
Talk just a little bit, just for the sake of it. Say what you think of it.
Long talks. Long talks.
Talk just a little bit, just for the sake of it. Say what you think of it.
Welcome to Jumanji.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 53 of the Wulong Talks podcast. My name is Jason. I'm the host of the show, as you know. And this week, I'm joined by my partner in crime, Mr. Rich Kid, a.k.a. the Rustling Kid, a.k.a. Rich Reviews. Rich Reviews, say what's up, man?
Yeah, what's happening, people?
Cool, and we're back with another episode, man. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Where have you been all this time? I don't know. But we're glad to have you. So welcome. And for those of you returning to us, thanks a lot for coming back and enjoying the show, man. Rich, how you been, man? You been all good?
Yeah, not too bad, man. In fact, pretty good, to be honest. I finally got into what's it called? Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, baby. So I've been banging that out, man.
I keep getting the notifications on my PS4. I'm like, what the hell? It's like, oh, Richard just found hidden like trophy number 2015 or something. I'm like, what?
Listen, I feel I'm like a black Indiana Jones, like up in here. Well, black female Indiana Jones, because the characters that you're playing, they're like, you know, they're female and they're some form of color. But I'm just loving it. Like, I'm so happy. But shout out to Monica. So I'm so happy that she got me this game for like a Secret Santa, like nearly a year ago. So yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah, but
cool,
apart from that, that's it, really.
Good. Been watching anything interesting on TV and anything like that?
No. In fact, tell a lie. Give me 2 seconds. What's up? Nothing. You okay? Okay. So that's obviously Luca wanted to get involved in the action. I finished Jessica Jones season 2, which I was really impressed with. I can't even lie. I mean, we're gonna do another show, obviously, like just going through it in a lead up to Iron Fist season 2, and hopefully Daredevil season 3 at the end of the year at some point. But I purposely didn't watch it just because of the bad taste that Iron Fist season 1 and Defenders season 1 left in my mouth. But I was like, you know what? Let me just peep it, because I'm already invested in this franchise already, and I was genuinely impressed. Like I'm actually upset that I left it a bit too long. So I've now got that fire in me that I will basically go and watch Punisher season 1. So I'll be up to date on the Netflix MCU.
Nice. They recently finished filming Punisher season 2. Apparently, I saw. So
yeah.
I imagine we'll be getting that some point early next year. So I'm looking forward to that. Listeners, as you know, I mean, we haven't really done our reviews yet for the Netflix TV shows, Marvel TV shows as yet. We've just been kind of trying to catch up on everything, along with, you know, trying to balance our busy lives. But we're getting there. We're getting there. A Luke Cage season 2 review will be coming very soon. And as Rich said, we'll be doing a Jessica Jones season 2 rundown as well. Because like you, Rich, I'm a fan of the season. When it came out, there was a lot of negativity around the show, and a lot of people quite critical of the show in general. And I felt a lot of the criticism was unwarranted. And I wrote a blog post about it on our website. If you haven't been to our website before, it's www.wulongtalks.com. You could check it out there. And I felt a lot of the criticism was, as said, was unwarranted. I felt that it did a lot of the things right that it got right in the first season, it did again in the second season. So, if you enjoyed those things about it in the first season, where's the problem? The main kind of villain and the way that was played was perhaps not as standard and as linear as you normally get with a comic book adaptation, but there's nothing wrong with, trying to change direction, especially when you're in your second season. I don't think you can just continue doing exactly the same thing. And, you know, that's something that we discussed that we both enjoyed about Luke Cage season 2, was that they tried to do something a little bit differently. They learned from the things that didn't work in the first season and said, okay, let's try and do this. And, you know, for the most part, it worked great. So, yeah, I was a bit confused by people's reaction to that. But as said, we'll do a full podcast and we'll break it all down and talk about all the things we liked and we didn't like. For me personally, the most kind of geeky thing I guess I've done recently is watch Ant-Man and the Wasp, which I quite enjoyed. I didn't enjoy it as much as the first movie, but as a whole, I still found it an enjoyable kind of romp, as the Ant-Man movies are turning out to be. And we did a non-spoiler review for it as well on this podcast. So if you want to have a listen to that because you haven't seen Ant-Man and the Wasp yet and you're undecided, you can take a second to check that out on our podcast. Just head to our podcast feed wherever you found this podcast recording, and it'll be listed under there as "Is It Worth a Tenner?" Ant-Man and the Wasp review. Okay, well, let's crack on, mate, shall we? Because we were having a chat, Rich and I, earlier this week, and we were kind of talking about movies and the movie business and the desire for, you know, franchises and how the ways in which kind of franchises have changed the way that we as a cinema, you know, viewing public enjoy movies and watch movies and experience them. And we were wondering, you know, why some franchises work and why some don't, and how, you know, franchise power bases have shifted a lot because of the way fans have reacted to certain things. So we're going to do an episode where we're going to try and explain some of the things around franchises, because I think a lot of people who are now getting into movies, in particular because of some of the popular franchises that are in cinemas at the moment, really don't understand what that phrase means and kind of how these things work. So we'll try our best as fans and as long running film fans and students of the game to try and answer some of those questions and look into all of that. But first of all, we'll touch up real quick on some of the movie snippets and TV snippets of news that have come out recently. Firstly, we'll talk about the news that broke sometime last week about the actress Ruby Rose being cast as Batwoman in a Batwoman TV series, which is being planned for release some point next year, I believe. So Ruby Rose has been cast in the role, and here's something you won't be surprised to learn, Rich. She's left Twitter because she got a whole heap of abuse on Twitter when her casting was announced, and she's disabled her Instagram comments because, again, people have been basically acting like dickheads towards her. In terms of like the Ruby Rose news, I mean, I have my own opinion, which I'll get into with Ruby Rose. But in terms of your kind of take on it, I mean, number one, I guess, were you happy with her casting? And number two, you know, do you think that Batwoman can really work as a solo TV show?
Well, is it going to be? It is a solo TV show, or is it like she's going to get her own show off? What's it called? Off the Arrow.
Well, basically, yeah, she'll be part of the Arrowverse. She's going to be introduced as a character some point in Arrow around, I think, November or December, they were saying, of this year. So she will be firstly introduced in that show, but then her spin-off show will basically be her own, her own solo series.
Okay. You know what? I'm talking to Uncle Jason. You want to say hello? Okay, cool. No. Jason, give me 2 seconds. In fact, listeners and Jason, give me a second. Give that to me, Luca.
Are they fun snacks?
Yeah, we're going to take it away on our trip. Upstairs.
Why?
Because I'm talking. I'm on the phone. Sorry, dude. Upstairs, not outside. It's cold. Upstairs, not outside, please. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm a Ruby Rose fan. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think she's like the best of actresses, but that wasn't her forte in the first place anyway. She was like a celebrity stroke DJ who's getting into acting now, and it is what it is. So there's that. I mean, the thing that I found really, really funny and weird about her casting is that, you know what, I'm obviously, I'm not in a position to be allowed, well, to give certain judgments, but then I will also have an opinion. So I'm not female and I'm not lesbian. So I know some people might turn around and be like, well, I'm not really allowed to have a say in who can be cast. But all the backlash that I read, at one point, did I read anything that I didn't read anybody say that, well, at least we've cast somebody who actually is lesbian to be playing a lesbian character. It was just a thing of like, oh, she's a shit actress, and that was it. It was just like, yeah, she's just a shit actress. And I just found it a bit weird that, well, not weird, but once again, they're judging somebody who hasn't even done the job yet. You understand? That's the thing that pissed me off. Like, is that once again is upsetting. Like that, that people they've got the right to make somebody's life hell. They don't have to like change their normal day-to-day of living just because they're not happy with them being casted. Then you know what? Here's another thing. Every single negative review that I read, nobody gave an alternative to who could play Batwoman.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, like, I'm somebody who, I have to admit, when she was cast, I was a bit like, no, I don't know about that, because I kind of wanted and was hoping for somebody with a bit more acting pedigree than her to get the role. Simply because, when I think of Ruby Rose, the one thing that's never really kind of wowed me about her is her acting. I didn't think she was great in season 2 of Orange is the New Black. In a way, she kind of brought the tone down for me. I didn't think she was good in John Wick 2. I didn't think she was good in the new Triple X, and everything, that I kind of see her in, it doesn't really convince me that there is enough talent to carry what potentially is a very weighty character in Batwoman, because of kind of the issue surrounding that character and the way that the character's been written in the past in comic books. But that said, I mean, you make a good point. We've not seen anything yet from her. We don't have a clue what the plan is with this character from a creative point of view. And obviously, the producers of this series have seen something in her that has said to them, yeah, let's go with her, because presumably there was an audition process. So she must have come through against other actors and really impressed the producers and the people behind the show. So, we don't really have a right to kind of write her off at this point. And I think, as you said, you're absolutely right, and I agree with you 100%. People just seem to think they have a right to kind of ruin people's lives almost because they don't like the fact that they've been cast in a TV show or a film. It's the weirdest thing. I mean, listeners, we've spoken about this many times. We did a podcast where we tried to address some of the keyboard warrior elements out there within the fan community and how people kind of respond to things in a negative way just because they feel, Twitter or Instagram gives them a voice so they can say what they like. It's disappointing. It's really disappointing and sad. And I actually feel for her that she's had to go through that. But, again, as we've said many times on this podcast, this isn't the first time and she's not the first one. There are lots and lots of people over the last 2-3 years who have faced this kind of abuse, and whether you like her as an actress or you don't like her as an actress, I think we all have to wait and see what happens. We have to wait until we see her first appearance or her first episode before we can start making judgments. Until that point, we should all just take a chill pill and relax and just be like, you know what, the CW team, Greg Berlanti and his team, who've produced all these shows over these years, who've produced The Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Arrow, which is now in its 7th season. These people obviously know what they're doing. So it's not incumbent on us to turn around and say, she's going to ruin this and she's going to ruin that. We don't know. Like, none of us here are writers, are directors, are filmmakers or anything. We're just fans. So let's wait and see what they have served up for us. Did you want to add anything, Rich?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is one thing I'm gonna say as well. Take into account, like, see, these keyboard warriors, the main thing that pisses me off about them is that they always seem to forget that these are people. I mean, these are human beings. Take into account that Ruby Rose suffers from depression, and it's been a known thing that she suffers from depression as well. So I hope that any of those people out there that have kind of given her a hard time, take a step back and just look at your actions and like don't be a dick. This isn't the first time that someone's had to deactivate their account because of like you said, because of like people just attacking them. And some people are able to just deactivate the account and just be pissed off about it and still go on. Some people it affects in a different way.
Yeah.
So you know what? So like I said, a lot of the people out there that I saw that were making noise, it was a mixture of everybody. Like as far as I'm concerned, no demographic got off clean in regards to this casting for for Ruby Rose being cast as Batwoman. So be prepared to be judged if bad shit happens. But I genuinely wasn't impressed, man. It really, really upset me.
Yeah, it's kind of pathetic, really, that we have to keep addressing this over and over again on the podcast. And I'm sure you listeners must be bored of hearing us talk about it. But, frankly, human beings and people are not behaving in the way that they should be. They're not showing the basic amount of respect that you show another person, whether you agree with them or not. And that's why we keep ending up in these scenarios. But either way, I mean, from a Bat fan perspective, how do you think we're going to get into the Bat world? Do you think this is a sign that maybe the shackles are coming off of the Bat franchise in general on TV, and that we might be using Batwoman as a way into bringing in other characters from that universe as well?
I think it is. I think it's maybe Warner Brothers, because basically it's up to Warner Brothers. I take it whether they're allowed to use anybody from the Bat family in CW.
Yeah.
So this is what I can imagine only happening right now. I can see Warner Brothers are kind of just sitting down and just finally having to admit that one of the most popular franchises that they've got, they're not utilizing it enough. So let's open it up a bit. Well, I mean, there's that, and let's be brutally honest. The amount of money that they're losing, I reckon they must be shitting themselves as well. So yeah. So I think it is maybe like a little bit of a gateway into the Bat universe. I mean, they've already done it with Superman, and that Superman that appeared in Supergirl, it wasn't even like Henry Cavill Superman or anything like that. So it's interesting that when they do open up, they are actually not afraid to do other forms of castings, and they and try to keep things separate just in case it doesn't work. But they seem to be doing a pretty good job with it. But I'm interested. I'm really interested to see if they're going to go all the way through and introduce everybody from the Bat universe, because once again, I mean, like, as much as there's a big uproar about Ruby Rose being cast as Batwoman, I mean, anybody who's new to like this universe, you ain't seen shit until you've seen like a casting for like a Batman or a Superman or a James Bond or a Doctor Who. So let's see what happens from there.
Yeah, for real. All right, listeners. Well, we're going to move on from that topic, but let us know what you think about Batwoman, the TV show. I mean, are you excited for it? Are you looking forward to the show? Are you looking forward to seeing Ruby Rose play the character? Do you think it's going to be an extended Bat universe that we'll get? Let us know. Listen in to the end of the podcast, and you'll find out how you can get in touch with us. But yeah, recently as well, we got some news again early this week. It was, in fact, that the Academy Awards is now going to create a new category for films that, boy, I'm trying not to be cynical here, but but films that they don't want to give an Oscar to, but are kind of compelled to give an Oscar to because the audience likes them very much. That's how I'm reading it, listeners. But anyway, they've created a new category for the next Oscar ceremony, which is called Most Popular Film. We don't know a lot of details about what the qualifying markers are for that movie and how it will be graded as to which films will be categorized within that and nominated. But understandably, there's quite a few people who are quite miffed about this category change, purely because as said, it's hard to not look at it and see it as something that's very patronizing and designed to keep genre movies out of the running for main picture Oscars and things like that. Rich, what was your initial kind of reaction to it when you saw the news, and how did you feel about it?
I thought it was a bit lazy, to be fair. I mean, like, I can understand why they are doing it, and I think I think that the Oscars are basic. That we're coming into an age now where, like, the Oscars, like much like quite a few things in this whole world, they're starting to see that maybe they haven't moved enough with the times, which is cool, which is fair enough. But the thing is, there's a reason why you've got, like, well, it's weird because I don't want to sound like a bit of a dick, but at the same time, I think they're trying to get in new viewers because they just want to try and appeal to everybody because they think it's the right thing to do, which to a certain degree it is the right thing to do. But then at the same time, I don't want it.
Sorry, just to cut into you there.
Yeah.
The ratings for that show apparently have been struggling. So it potentially is a way of them trying to boost the ratings of the actual TV show itself.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you've got that as well. But then most popular films is not really going to be. We're living in a time now where people are afraid to say what they really feel, which is a bit of a double-edged sword. So there's that. So I mean, for example, I mean at this year's Oscar, I mean, Wonder Woman as a film, I think it's a really, really good film. If it's going to be based on the most popular, then you're going to get a certain demographic just going for that film just because they feel it should, because it's never won something like that before. The same thing could be said for Black Panther. I think it is a dangerous category to create in something like the Oscars. But then at the same time, the Oscars itself is so closed off as well, and there's so much politics behind it that there's neither a right answer or a wrong answer. Like that, I mean, if you could get like a whole demographic that could say that Call Me by Your Name deserves to be in that category, but then you'll be like, well, but hold on, wait a minute. It's Call Me by Your Name is what you consider to be like, quote unquote, a real film and not part of a franchise. So what happens when you bring in a category like most popular film? When does it stop? When does it stop being a most popular film and start being an actual film, which is actually being done creatively, which is what all films are. You've got directors, you've got screenwriters, you've got lighting, special effects, and costume designers, everything. All films have to go through this process. So who is to say that because I don't think it was done that well, but it's really, really popular, we should give it an award for that? That's a bit of a piss take. So that's why I stand there in that. I think it's a very, very dangerous category.
Well, I mean, as said, I mean the problem that I'm having with it and how I'm feeling about it is that it's very patronizing. It's very kind of like, well, I suppose there's all these people, millions of people around the world that go and see, X movie and go and see, Transformers or Wonder Woman or, all of these movies that bring in $1 billion a year. So I suppose we should do something, to kind of say, yeah, we see you, but you're still not going to play with us. Like we still have our we have our club over here. This is for all the elite films. This is for the like you said, the real films, the serious films. You guys can go and play in your sandbox, and we'll come over and check on you to see how you're doing. But the grown-ups are going to go and have a drink and have some pims, under a parasol somewhere. And that to me is what bothers me about the category, because for a long time, we've kind of felt, and I'm sure you feel the same, Rich, that genre film kind of gets snubbed a lot, by these major award shows, even though it's genre film that most people go to see in the cinema. Overwhelmingly so. I mean, that's the bottom line. Most people, when they go to the cinema to watch a movie, they're going to go and see a genre movie. They're going to go and see a quote unquote popular film. So why can these films not be taken seriously and considered in just as much merit as something that, somebody has crafted and poured their heart and soul into and has tried to further the art of filmmaking in some way? There's nothing wrong with that type of cinema. We all enjoy it. You mentioned, Call Me by Your Name as an example. We all enjoy those movies, but why can't we have both? Why can we not enjoy each of them on their own basis and on their own merits, instead of having to have separation where, no, you go here and this one goes here and that one goes there? Like, why? It doesn't make any sense to me, especially when you consider that there are many, many popular movies, quote unquote, that to me are, not just technical marvels in terms of, the amount of technical work that's gone into bringing this movie together, but actually in terms of some of the things they do with storytelling and with character is just as good as any of the other movies that are held in such high regard. And the performances, the acting performances in these movies are getting better and better all the time. The scripts are getting better. The dialogue is getting better. You're getting more interesting directors working in these fields. So why can we not, appreciate the fact that big movies, quote unquote, are just as artistic as some of the smaller movies that, we rush to congratulate on Oscars night? So for me, I think that's what bothers me really about this category. As I said, I don't really know a lot, and I don't think the Academy have said a lot about how these movies are going to be graded and categorized, and how you're going to qualify as a popular film in that genre. But yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of high hopes for it. It seems like a way of just sidelining certain movies, to be honest, and keeping them out the running. But yeah, you have any other thoughts, Rich?
Well, the thing is, the most popular movies that are going to be put into these categories, they're the money makers.
Yeah,
like exactly. Yeah, they're the money makers as well. So, so like I said, I mean, is it just going to be not based on? Is it going to be based on how much money a film makes? As to like, I don't know. Like, it's too much. It's too much of a vague category to put these films in. Like you said, and it just reeks of like patronism. That bad word where people, what Jason said earlier on, that word. You know what I mean? So yeah, so I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah, I suppose all we can do is wait and see, and wait until we hear some more information about the Academy and what it is they want to do. But yeah, I mean, let's move on, man, because there's not really much more we can say about that. But listeners, as I said, let us know what you think as well. I mean, I've heard arguments on both sides for and against this category. I know Jason Blum, the famous horror producer, is quite in favor of it. So maybe you're in his camp and you think this is a really good idea. If so, let us know. Let us know why. We'd love to hear from you. All right. Well, we're going to move on now to the bulk of the chat today, which, as I said a little bit earlier, is kind of a bit about franchises, because myself and Richard said we're having a chat, as we usually do, over a glass of water, because we're healthy dudes. We don't do pints. Not unless we're getting Legolas deliberately anyway. But yeah, we were having a chat about kind of, movies and where they're going and fan bases. And it got us into like the talk of franchises and the state of them right now and where they're going and stuff like that. And it dawned on me that a lot of people who watch these movies probably don't really know what a franchise necessarily is. So I thought, it would be a good, fun conversation for us to have with you guys about, what we as fans, what from our perspective, what franchises are, and particularly as we have some of them doing quite well. I mean, Mission Impossible has released its latest action fest in the cinemas and has been well received by critics and is doing pretty well at the box office as well. So, now's a good time as any really to take a look at this and see where we go. So, Rich, I mean, in terms of like franchises and kind of what they are, I mean, what's your understanding really, I guess, of a franchise, is I suppose the question to ask.
Okay, so my understanding of a franchise is a film that has more than one film attached to it. It's like anything more than three. So like, you know, anything, no, because I can, yeah, anything above two is considered a franchise as far as I'm concerned. And then on top of that, there's also merchandise involved and other forms of medium in the media used to basically tell the story and also cash in. So basically this cat's trying to kill me. My understanding of a franchise would be Star Wars, Harry Potter, um, Star Trek, anything where is not just contained to one film and it's more than one film and it you can get everything. Jurassic Park, my standard of a franchise is not even Jurassic Park films, but it's Ian Malcolm's explanation of what Jurassic Park is like where you take something and you package it and you give it to this person and you give it to that person and you just in so many different ways. So that's what I consider a franchise, and they're not always the best thing. But yeah, we'll move on to that in a second.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess that's a pretty good explanation, really. In terms of franchises, I would think of them in the same way as you, really. More than two movies, you know, with a whole kind of package deal, and we'll get into the nuts and bolts of the package itself. But yeah, you know, something that is designed not just to be a critical success and a box office success, but something that's just designed to have a wider cultural impact. You know, for people to become fans of a brand, and for people to, you know, really buy into what this whole brand is offering, whether that be through merchandise or through ticket sales or through, you know, whatever else. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much like how I kind of have always understood franchises, but they've changed a lot over the years. I mean, I guess if you look at it, the first kind of, you know, a lot of people consider the first true sort of summer blockbuster movie from Hollywood to be Jaws, the original film, because it was kind of the first film that came out in the summertime, in the height of summer, really, and was a box office success. And it spawned, you know, a number of sequels, and in a way, I guess, became its own franchise because they made a killing off of, you know, merchandising for that movie, for T-shirts and stickers and all of that kind of stuff. And then obviously you've got, you know, Star Wars as well, you know, which is one of the big early franchises to get in on the act. Star Trek, the Star Trek movies, I mean, although they were kind of spun out from the TV show, you know, those movies were, I guess you would consider a franchise too, one of sort of the early franchises. But as said, they've kind of changed over the years. What's kind of been the more sort of notable changes that you've noticed in terms of what studios are trying to do with a franchise or what they're trying to achieve?
Nothing's actually really changed. If anything, the only thing that's changed for me is that they're now even bigger. Like I said, like not like a franchise is everything now. Although in saying that, I'm just trying to think, was it just easier? Is it just easy access now? Like I think when I think of franchise, I think of like Star Wars, and I think of like Transformers, and I think of things that you could watch the cartoon, you could have the cereal, you could have the lunchbox, you could have the, you know, the underpants and the duvet and everything. And that's pretty much the same thing now anyway. I would just say that it's just done on a bigger scale now. So now you have stores dedicated to that. So, you know, you can go to the Disney store and there'll be a whole section of the Disney store dedicated to Marvel or dedicated to Star Wars. So yeah, so there's that, and then the way how they've also just integrated a lot of merchandise into just everyday living. If you get my meaning. So there's now things that used to be considered like just for kids, but you know, one of my, you know, Luca's a kid, but when I go to one of his mum's one of his friends' parents' house, they've got like a Harry Potter one collection on the shelves, and it's not for the kids, it's for the adults. So it's one of those things where it's like that's the good thing about a franchise and how it appeals to the mass market is that now you don't have to feel guilty about liking a particular thing. Now you can just be saying, oh, well, this is what I like and this is what I'm going to have. But in saying it, if anything has been done different, I wouldn't say it's been done different. I just would say it's been done on a grander scale now.
Do you think that technology has changed things in any way, like in terms of the fact that we now have such a thing as social media, which didn't exist around the time of those early franchises, around the time of Jaws and Star Wars and things like that? Do you think that's kind of played any part in the way that studios kind of look at how they're going to put together a franchise? Because as you said, the name of the game for the big studios right now is franchises. They all seem to want to have one. So, do you think that's kind of played any part?
You know what? Yeah, it definitely has. Yeah, definitely. Like now, like you said, you've got both both Warner Brothers and Marvel bringing out their own streaming channels, and you're just going to have people like I do things differently, but I know there's going to be people out there who are just going to be purchasing these channels just so they can continue to be a part of this franchise universe. So whether it be just for the Marvel stuff or for the Star Wars stuff. So yeah, so I think internet has definitely played a part in how it can be moved forward. But in saying that, it's just now it's available everywhere. That's the thing about anything to do with the franchise. You can get it. If you want it, you can get it. No matter what day it is, no matter what time it is, you can get whatever you want from that thing that you generally just love. So yeah, I'd say that the internet has definitely played a big part in it.
For sure. And in terms of what we were looking at earlier, in terms of the Disney Store being a spin-off of the Walt Disney Studios brand, and them kind of selling things through all the franchises that they own, selling all the merchandise for that through a Disney Store and things like that. What do you think are the things that are key to making a franchise successful, especially a movie franchise? Because we've seen some examples of some that have been successful, and then others have fallen by the wayside. So do you think there are sort of fundamentals in terms of the movies themselves, or do you think it's more kind of a split balance between the movie and the merchandise and capturing the public's imagination? What are the things that you think you would need to kind of consider if you were going to do that?
I think it's definitely a split down the middle as to it being a good movie franchise and then merchandise that comes along with it. But then at the same time, I think sometimes it's just about appealing to that gap in the market. I mean, if you're talking about a franchise, my example for that, what I've just said, would be the Fast and Furious franchise. There's actually no merchandise behind that franchise. Have you noticed? But yet it makes shitloads of money. Especially considering that when the first film came out, it was a film that was meant to be taken quite semi-seriously, and as the films have gone on, they've changed from people that steal cars and do drag racing to essentially secret agents working for the US government, but still doing elaborate stunts in cars and flying through Dubai and stuff like that from building to building. So I think sometimes it's just appealing to that gap in the market, and it doesn't necessarily have to be something good. It just has to be entertaining.
Yeah.
No, that's not going to work for everything. For example, I would consider The Godfather to be a pretty good franchise, but it's not a good franchise because it's just it's just good for what it is. They're engaging stories that are they're amazing pieces of film. Maybe not the third part, but that's down to to other people's opinions. So I think that I wouldn't say there's any one formula that works, because we've seen the build-ups or the lead-ups to franchises that have just bombed and haven't even they're meant to have 4 films for the whole franchise set over X amount of years before they're released, and some of them haven't even been finished. So you've got Mortal Instruments that wasn't finished. There was a Divergent franchise that wasn't finished. So I think sometimes, as much as there may be a blueprint there, it's not guaranteed to work. It depends on the times.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I would say I think there's a few things that you need to kind of get right. Um, I would say there's probably one of the key ones is marketing. Marketing, your marketing game needs to be spot on because a lot of the kind of high profile failures that we've seen, like the Dark Universe that Universal were tout in, and Richard mentioned the Mortal Instruments universe and things like that. And I suppose you could kind of put the Maze Runner in there as well. The marketing campaign was quite poor. They didn't seem to kind of pick up on getting people interested in the product and excited about the product. And the social media game was not strong for either of those, really. You didn't really see many kind of posts about the different movies that were coming out and things like that. And I think this is where kind of like technology and social media have played such a crucial part, because I think the word of mouth element is very strong with all of these franchises. And even going back as far as Star Wars, when the first Star Wars film came out, loads of people didn't know anything about it and didn't know what it meant or anything. And it was the people who'd gone and seen it and had come out and have told other people that then kind of, led to the word spreading and other people going, I keep hearing this Star Wars thing is supposed to be good. Let me go check it out. And so on and so on. And so it grew through that word of mouth. And in the social media age, I guess that's through people Instagramming, tweeting, posting on Facebook, etc. And it feels like some of those franchises haven't really been able to capture that audience and the imagination of that audience and capture their attention effectively enough. I think another thing that's important is making sure that your product feels relevant to the people that you're targeting as well. Because with, again, to use the Dark Universe as an example, and I'm going to keep kicking that franchise because it made no sense to me whatsoever to begin with. But when you looked at the Dark Universe and what they were trying to do, you kind of were like, okay, so who is this universe being marketed to? Like, who is your audience? And it felt like Universal didn't really bother to check. Whereas with the Fast and Furious franchise, it's evolved because they've been looking at their audience and their demographic and going, we've got this quite young, quite diverse audience that seem to want something that reflects kind of the things that they like. So, they like, they like the actors that we've put together. They like Paul Walker. They like Michelle Rodriguez. They like Vin Diesel. They like The Rock. So let's put them in, these movies, but they also like, bigger stories. They like adventures. They don't want to just keep seeing, street racing movies over and over again. They want to be told, they want to be taken on a journey. And what they've done really well is, as you pointed out, is they've not bothered to stick to the street racing thing anymore. They've gone, okay, well, let's, now move these characters around the globe. Let's move them to Brazil. Let's see what happens if we drop them in London. Let's see what happens if they work on behalf of the US government. Let's see what happens if one of them turns rogue, and they do these different things with it, which keep the franchise fresh and which their audience obviously loves. And you could argue that a similar thing, Paramount have done a similar thing with Mission Impossible. And that's part of the reason why it's been so successful, is because they've kept it moving. They haven't kind of stuck in one, in one kind of mentality, in one style for the movies. They've tried to change it up. They've brought in different directors who have different visions. They've known what their niche is, and they've known the core things that make that franchise strong, but they've also been brave enough to kind of slightly, change the format a bit to make sure that the audience that they have gained keeps staying engaged with it. Whereas with the Dark Universe, I have no idea who that was supposed to be aimed at. I don't know if that was aimed at horror fans. I don't know if it was aimed at action fans. I don't know if it was aimed at the old, the young, women, men. Who knows? Because they, the marketing campaign was muddled as hell, and they seem to just be leaning on the fact that with regards to the Mummy, that Tom Cruise is a star. So we'll just stick Tom Cruise in it, and everybody will come because of him. And it's like, well, no, you kind of need a bit more than that. People who come to see Tom Cruise in the Mission Impossible movies are not just going to see Tom Cruise. They're also going because they've bought into that world that the Mission Impossible movies has created. They expect to see, you know, Tom Cruise doing his own stunts and to see, you know, big spectacle and things like that. But it just seems like it's been very, very, you know, rushed with some of these other franchises. So for me, I think that, you know, they're kind of the things that I consider to be like the key elements and the things that really that franchises need to consider, you know. Any thoughts?
No, well, you know, you just mentioned in the Dark Universe. That made me laugh. Because you know what? They made one film and they were...
I'm too hungry.
You're hungry? What else okay, would you like some pizza?
No.
What would you like? Pardon? Okay, then have... Okay, then have that then.
Mess on your bed.
You made a mess on my bed.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay.
No, which one?
No, I'm okay, thanks. You just ruined my night. I shouldn't even say that. I'm joking. Okay, take it upstairs. I'll be take it upstairs. I'll be up in a minute, dude.
Oh, just for a little bit.
No, I don't want any. You're putting it all over the chair. I don't want any. I'm not hungry.
Have one.
No, I'm okay, thanks.
Have one.
Okay, put it in my mouth then. Did you wash your hands? What do you mean, Did you wash your hands? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, upstairs, please. Yeah, as I was saying, so the thing that made me laugh about the Dark Universe is that they made one film and then they just made this big announcement. They was going to have Johnny Depp in there, Javier Bardem, and all of these people. And I was just like, once again, like I've said before about Luca.
Some water, please.
Okay, Jay, give me 2 seconds. Audience, give me 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Sorry about that, listeners. As you know, if any of you are parents out there, you know that parenting is a 24/7 job. So Richard has gainfully gone to take care of our guest star Lucas Sky for the episode. But yeah, I mean, like I'll just carry on while he's off. But yeah, I mean, I do feel like for franchises, if you're talking about you know, building a successful franchise, then one of the key things really has to be how you consider your audience and knowing your audience. I mean, it will always be, you know, the key thing. There are rare exceptions where, you know, people have not had a clue what the audience is and have just put something out, and for some reason it's just captured the zeitgeist and that's been that. But generally speaking, you know, from what we've seen previously, you have to kind of know your audience. So that's absolutely a key takeaway, I think. But it sounds like Rich is back. So Rich, go ahead, man.
Yeah, no. What I was saying is the thing of like audiences we're smarter now. That's the thing. We're a lot smarter. Like you just can't say, okay, we're going to give you this film and you're going to take it and you're going to like it. That's the thing about us now. And I think that's one of the reasons why going back, why this whole popularity category in the Oscars isn't going to work. And it's just one of those things. Like I said, you get studios just saying, "Oh, I'm going to give you a Tarzan film." Like who asked for a Tarzan film? Nobody asked. Nobody asked for a Tarzan film. Nobody's asked for a Mummy film. Nobody asked for a King Arthur film from Guy Ritchie. Not to say that, you know, that we're being disrespectful because, you know, they make films. This is what you do. But this is the thing about studios now. Is like, and compared to audience, we're smarter. We would tell you what we want. Don't get me wrong. We might not always be right. Case in point would be a franchise like Star Wars. Yeah, we wanted to tell us about the story of how Anakin becomes Darth Vader, and when it does come in, we're not some people aren't happy, but in the majority of the time, like I think we kind of know what we want, and we're not easily fooled as we were back in the day now. Just like you said, because of internet, you know, just because of internet, just because like information is just like easily ready now. So that's the thing that I find fascinating about these franchises that get, you know, try to get rammed down our throats.
Yeah, for true. I mean, I have to agree with that 100%, man. Like it just, you know, the one thing to take away is that listeners is that, you know, if you've got, you know, a couple million sitting behind a sofa somewhere and are thinking about getting in the franchise game, then yeah, absolutely make sure that you know your audience and you kind of know what they want. And as Rich said, you know, the audience isn't always right. As you said, case in point with, you know, the Star Wars prequel trilogy. You know, to say it's divisive is putting it mildly. But you know, you've got to kind of know what they want if you want to have a successful hit movie on your hands. So Yeah, I would echo that said wholeheartedly. But speaking of Star Wars, me and Rich were having a conversation in the week, and as said, we'd love to hear what you guys think about this as well. But Rich, we were talking about what we consider to be like sort of the number one franchise right now, in terms of popularity, box office success, cultural impact, and so on. And for a very long time, it was Star Wars. Star Wars was considered to be, the pinnacle in terms of movie fandom, and the one thing that everybody kind of freaked out about. And Star Wars, everybody had a favorite Star Wars movie. Everybody had considers the Empire Strikes Back to be one of the greatest movies ever made. Now it seems like Star Wars is kind of struggling a bit as a brand. Audiences are divided in terms of the recent movies that they've put out, and Solo was a movie that didn't do as well as people had hoped it would do. So now we're looking at this thing and we're thinking, the landscape has shifted. So we kind of were thinking maybe the MCU has kind of overtaken Star Wars in terms of its prominence in popular culture, and its place within the pantheon of kind of successful movie franchises. And I mean, certainly in terms of the numbers, it's hard to argue with against the MCU, because it's pretty much been a box office hit from the moment it started, with one or two minor exceptions, and even then it's debatable as to how quote unquote successful they were from a financial point of view for some of the movies. But, generally speaking, every movie that's come out has been a hit with audiences. So, Rich, for you, like, what do you consider to be the number one franchise right now? Would you consider it to be Star Wars or the MCU?
Oh, MCU by far, easily, hands down.
Mm.
Yeah, it just is. I think Star Wars is in a state where it doesn't know what it wants to be. And I think it's trying too hard, too soon, to please a large amount of people. And the thing about the Star Wars universe, or well, the fans for the Star Wars universe, is that essentially you've got a bunch of people a bunch of fans that are like, what, 3-4 different generations. So you've got people that saw the original Star Wars in the cinema at a pretty decent age, and then you've got people that saw the original Star Wars on TV, and then you've got, so like myself, like, so I think when it came out, I wasn't even born yet. I was born in like 78, so I'm a Star Wars fan from television reruns, so like Christmas time and all of that malarkey, and then you've got people who have essentially grown up on the prequels and don't even consider the original Star Wars films to be that good. Oh, it looks old. The special effects look a bit rubbish, and it's just like, wow, okay, that's generally different. And then you've got like a whole new generation now that are being brought up on like the Rey, Finn, and Poe Dameron trilogy. Well, duology. The third part should be coming out next year or something. So you've got 3 different generations that can't seem to make up their mind, and almost, number one, they don't respect each other and look down on each other in a particular way. I mean that's how I view the Star Wars fanverse right now. So whereas like with the MCU, I think is pretty much a straightforward type of thing. This is a case. This is one of the best examples of like, well, this is our universe and this is what you're going to be given. You can have a little bit of input into it, but just remember, it's us making stuff for you. So you're going to have to take it, and you're going to have to accept it. You're going to have to accept it and trust us that we're going to give you the best possible franchise ever. And what they've done as well is that you've got the comic book side of Marvel, and then you've got the cinema part of Marvel. And even though they may have certain things that kind of cross over, they're very much their own franchises in themselves. Whereas like with Star Wars, you had a lot of like merchandise and franchise that tied into the films. And when, let's say for example, this new trilogy or when Disney acquired the rights to it, all of that was basically made non-canon. So you've got a bunch of fans now who are not happy that the amount of time and effort and money let's not forget money that has been invested in this universe to keep this franchise alive has now been sidelined and said, well, you know what? Thanks a lot for everything, but yeah, don't worry about it. It doesn't really matter anymore. So I think that's the reason why the MCU is pretty much a stronger franchise than Star Wars right now.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I mean, I think I would have to agree. I think I'm kind of at a stage at the moment where I'm almost more excited by MCU movies than I am by Star Wars movies. And I grew up loving Star Wars, but for some reason, the MCU is more. It just feels more relevant to me
Mm,
at the moment, and I think that the way that they've handled their different properties and the different ideas and the different movies and things like that has been quite innovative in terms of big scale movie making, and I like the fact that there is, everybody kind of has their own favorite MCU character and connects with that character in a certain way. I like the fact that, but even though they like those characters, they don't, hate others with a passion. It's just kind of everybody just kind of says, oh, Captain America is my guy, or Bucky is my guy, or Falcon is my guy, or Black Widow, or Scarlet Witch, or they everybody kind of as said kind of has their characters that they resonate with, but there doesn't. And again, I may be being a bit naive here, so if I'm wrong, please let me know. But it doesn't seem to me as if there is the kind of I like this character, and if you don't like it, fuck you. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like people just like the character and want to celebrate that character. Whereas in Star Wars, especially at the moment, it kind of feels divided. It feels like everybody's kind of gravitated towards a specific character, and if you don't get why they like this character, then they're going to have an argument with you. Whereas that doesn't seem to really happen too much within the MCU. Again, as an outsider, semi-outsider looking in, that doesn't seem to happen. So there's a bit more unity amongst the fan base, which in turn means that people are willing to go and see movies that come out from the MCU, even if it doesn't star their favorite character, or their favorite character is not being featured. People will still go and watch the movie anyway because it's the MCU. And there seems to be a lot of trust in the brand as well. People are very trusting of Marvel Studios and what they're doing with these characters because they've largely done a really good job with them. So, whenever a new MCU movie is out, people are willing to give it a go because it's as said, there is that trust within the brand at the moment, which I think is quite interesting. So, yeah, I would probably have to agree. I think the MCU is flying high right now. But Star Wars, there's still a lot of plans for Star Wars going forward. There's, we're hearing about live action TV shows that will be coming soon. Disney has its streaming service, its video on demand streaming service that it plans to launch in the USA next year. So it's obviously going to need content for that. So it seems like there's different, kind of things that they've got in the pipeline for it. So we'll have to see kind of how, Star Wars can recapture some of that loyalty from the fan base, I guess is the word I'm looking for, and see how they kind of go about doing that. But yeah, I would agree. I think the MCU is a one of running things right now, man. Did you want to add anything else before we wrap it up with the franchises?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Like, MCU just can't. It's 10 years going strong. And if you think about it, well, all good things come to an end, and I think probably from next year, that's when we're going to see how strong the franchise is. Because every franchise that generally does seem to do well for itself, after a certain amount of time, it does kind of peak. Like it's happened with Star Wars, it's happened with Star Trek. Harry Potter, I wouldn't put that in the same category as a franchise that peaked, because it was pretty much a set time period. You had books 1 to 7, and after 7 it's done. Everything else that comes afterwards is going to be something completely brand new. Whereas like with some of these other franchises, it's almost like they're basically saying, well, you know what, there's not gonna be any form of end to it. So that's a scary thing. So we'll see next year how the MCU will fare, especially with the whole James Gunn being removed as a director for Guardians of the Galaxy as well. But yeah, but hopefully they continue bringing out good stuff and they keep everyone happy, including myself and you and everyone else out there.
Yeah, man, for sure. All right. Before we go, Rich. Before we go, I mean, we're not done yet, listeners. We still got some good stuff to get to, but I guess before we move on from the franchise chat, what would you like to see as a movie franchise? Is there something out there that, like a property out there in, amongst books or comics or maybe the video game world, something where you feel like there's the potential there to capture an audience in the way that some of these other franchises have that we've talked about? Do you see any gaps in the franchise market where you think, yeah, you know what, this thing would work perfectly? Is there anything out there that you've seen?
Can it be something that already exists, or like does it?
Well, I was thinking more things that don't exist, so things that haven't really had an opportunity to get out there yet. So as I said, books is kind of rife for that. There's lots of franchises that have been attempted through books. So I don't know if there's a particular series that you can think of that you like, or as I said, if there's a comic book character maybe that hasn't really had any representation on the screen or elsewhere. So as I said, something that you think kind of could possibly connect with a wider audience in a way.
I mean, I read a franchise by an author called Wesley Chu called The Lives of Tao, and it's basically about a bunch of aliens that have been living on Earth for for millions of years. And basically, what happens is that each alien is kind of like in order to survive on the planet Earth, it needs to have a host. And what it is, but each host has, in one way or another, well, the main characters in one way or another have always been taken apart in human history. So, for example, you find out that Hitler had a host, and basically there's two alien factions. You've got the good ones, then you've got the bad ones. Some of the religious aspects that we now have in modern society now, they basically were created by these aliens, basically doing amazing things with certain hosts and how they were writing human history. So I think that would be a pretty good franchise, because it'd be a nice touch of sci-fi, but also weaved into stuff that we already know. So I mean, it'd be something similar to say the reason why some of the entries for Assassin's Creed is really good. So you basically got this character who is completely made up, but the settings and the surroundings around the character are true to life, and so it's something that you can feel a little bit more attached to. So with the last Assassin's Creed, I think you're in Egypt, and apparently I think they said that they actually went to Egypt and they did map scans. So when you're running around in Assassin's Creed, you're essentially running around in a certain map that comes from real Egypt, and I thought that was amazing. That's beautiful. And then you're able to go and see certain monuments that really do exist now, that you can either if you worst case possible scenario, see on the internet, or if you're lucky enough to travel, go and travel and go and see it. One of my most favorite memories that I've got is basically my first my first journey to New York, and I remember going to Bleecker Street, and obviously Doctor Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum wasn't there, but I knew where it would have been. If it really existed. So I think that franchise by Wesley Chu would be really good, because it'd be quite educational as well, which I think is something that's really, really missing from film right now. I don't feel that we get taught enough sometimes in films that get put out there. We're prepared to invest in a lot of, I wouldn't say nonsense, but a lot of made up things. But you know what? Educate us at the same time. Keep us entertained and educated. Take a bit of a manifesto from the BBC. Although I hate paying TV license. So I think that would be a good franchise. I'm trying to think of another franchise that'd be pretty decent or pretty good. You think of one, and I'll see if I can think of one while you're talking as well.
Okay. I was thinking of a book series that I really loved. kind of I started reading it as, you know, in my late teens and early 20s, and I still can't believe we've never had like a movie adaptation of any kind. But one that I really love is the Gemmell books by David Gemmell, called the Draenei Tales, which is kind of set in a universe that's a bit like the Lord of the Rings, I guess, in the sense that it's a sword and sorcery kind of fantasy world. But what Gemmell did was he took a lot of cues from the real world around him. So he used a lot of different cultures and societies from around the globe and just included them in his stories, but gave them like a kind of sword and sorcery spin, basically. And he used it as a way to I guess give a little bit more authenticity to the universe, but also to address certain issues within different societies, and the way in which characters are represented, and the way in which people have roles within our society and things like that. And I quite like it because I'm a sucker for sword and sorcery and fantasy and things like that. I love all of that. But it gives you the opportunity to do that. But there's so many books in that series that you can potentially spin off in loads of different directions. One of the cool things about it is there are recurring characters as well. So there's some characters who have their own individual book, but then pop up in someone else's book. There's kind of there's like sorcery. There's a group of like people who are able to see into the future. They're like seers, and they can almost see into different dimensions. And there's a certain part in the book where it hints at in one of his books, that it hints that his world kind of runs parallel to our world and to the real world, and that these seers are able to see it and don't understand the context of it. And it never really kind of got fleshed out or explored too much, but I love that idea as well. So for me, I love that kind of book series because I think it really has a lot of grounding. It's got a lot of diverse characters in it as well, so it ticks that box too. And it's just like a really fun series that I think audiences will really connect with. So for me, the Draenei Tales is what I'd love to see on a movie screen, I guess, and as a movie franchise too. You got your second one?
No, that's it. I'm out. I'm all burnt out.
Fair enough. Well, we'll draw a line under it anyway. We've talked a lot about franchises. So we'll move on. But listeners, as I said, we do want your impact and your feedback with regards to franchises and how you see them going and things that you'd love to see as a franchise as well. So let us know what you think. Again, listen along to the end of the podcast and you'll find out how to get in touch with us. All right. Well, as it's been a little while, we decided that we're going to bring back the question of the week, and we're going to try and keep this consistent because I keep saying I'm going to do it and then we don't do it, and it all becomes a bit of a mess. So I do apologize, listeners. That is on me. I'm usually in charge of that, and I need to kind of stay consistent with it. But we managed to get a question of the week out on social media last week, and we got some really good responses to it this week, and it's been a lot of fun. So first off, if you're listening and you contributed, thank you very much for doing so. Definitely you're awesome and you rock, and big up your chest and all of that. So we're going to go through some of the answers that we got. So we will start off with our Instagram page. So first of all, to say that the question of the week is something that will always go out on social media. So obviously, if you want to engage with the question of the week, you're going to have to be following us on social media. So make sure you do that. As said, listen to the end of the podcast. You'll find out how to do that. But we'll start off with our Instagram. So we got quite a lot of responses here. First of all, we got a response from Serendipity. She said that the first... Oh, sorry. I didn't even introduce the question, did I? So that's a bit stupid. So the question of the week this week, guys, was basically, what was the first memory you had of something scary that you saw on TV or on film. So it could be a TV show that you watched for the first time as a youngster and it freaked you out. It could be a movie that you saw for the first time and that scared you. So either one of those things, basically, what it was that made you shit your pants, or your Pampers, maybe in the case if you were young. But yeah, that's what we were kind of looking at, really. So for me, I said that, you know, when I was growing up, there were kind of three things really that scared me to no end and still bother me to this day. The first one is V, the TV series. Rich, I'm sure you remember V with the lizard aliens and things like that. Listeners, depending on your age, you might be thinking of V that was rebooted a few years ago with Marina Baccarin in the lead role. I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about the one from the 1980s. I believe it started in 1984, I think it was.
Yeah.
And specifically what bothered me about V was the way that the aliens used to hide inside human skins. And then when they were alone, they would rip their skin off and it would reveal this kind of lizard scales underneath. Hated it. They used to scare the shit out of me. Couldn't stand it, man. That and the fact that they ate mice as well. Oh, that killed me, man.
And the eyes, it was the eyes. Remember the eyes?
Yes, and the eyes. Yeah. The eyes as well were oh, yeah, that was too much, man. That was too much for a young kid to take. So V was definitely the first one. Second one was John Carpenter's Thing. I've talked about that before. But John Carpenter's Thing, you know, to this day, I said, still freaks me out. Still kind of gives me goosebumps. It's a phenomenal piece of cinema, but I really shouldn't have seen it at the age that I saw it at, because I think I was about 9 or 10. And yeah, that really wasn't appropriate for me to be watching that. And the last one, this one's going to make you laugh, Rich. The last one is the Incredible Hulk TV series.
Yeah, listen, standard.
I used to hate that. I liked the show and I enjoyed it, but I hated when Banner turned into the Hulk. Hated it.
Yeah.
Hated it. Because it sounded like he was in pain, because because his body was contorting and things like that. And body horror is something that really like kind of bothers me in general. Like body horror movies, I really have a hard time with them because I hate seeing kind of people writhing in pain and things like that. It just really kind of gets me on a primal level. So yeah, like the Incredible Hulk TV show, as said, as much as I loved it, like I used to kind of watch it with, you know, behind your hands, but you keep your fingers open so you could kind of still half see. That's what I used to do when I was watching it, because I didn't want to miss anything like when the Hulk was on screen, because he was badass. But yeah, the transformation scene, I bloody hated that, man. Rich, how about you, man? What was the things that kind of shook you up first as a kid?
Well, I mean, the Thing for definite. I can actually tell you what scene it was. Well, I'm a big John Carpenter fan anyway. But the Thing, the bit where it's autopsy happening after one of the members has fallen down, and it's just this whole sequence of them just battling this alien. So you've got one bit where somebody's arms get bitten off when he's trying to use a defibrillator to bring him back to life, and then you see the resilience of this thing, and that's the scary thing about it, because in order to survive, it detaches the head from the body and changes into a spider and basically tries to run away. And this is probably the best response I've ever heard in any film ever. They basically burn this body alive, and the head decapitates itself and gets the spider legs, and it tries to crawl off. And one of the guys just looks at it and goes, "You've got to be fucking kidding me." That's perfect. That's perfect. Like yourself, Incredible Hulk used to scare me as well, and it wasn't anything to do with body horror. It was just a thing of that I thought he was just gonna come and kill me, like simple as that, man. But then one which I have to admit, like for some reason, this is how you know that certain memories basically stay with you and have long-lasting effects. But Michael Jackson's Thriller, not the bit where he changes into the werewolf, but the bit when he changes into a zombie.
The zombie dance.
Yeah. And you know what it is? And it's one of those things where I've sat down and I've always asked myself, like, how come I'm scared of it still, but only one of the scary things in that video scares me? And I think it's because they make it very, very apparent that when he's changing into the werewolf at the beginning, it's Michael Jackson playing a character. And it's in the cinema, and it's the whole thing of like it's not really real, and something that you're watching which isn't real. Whereas like the bit when he changes into the zombie, and then at the end where he basically turns around to the camera and his eyes turn yellow, is that whole thing of like, holy shit, like it is real. Like there's no. I mean that shows you how well of a video it was, to be made, that it made you invest in it so much. So you've got a video and a video, and you're not scared of the video and the video because it's not real. And then basically at the end of the video that you're watching, you're so invested in it that when Michael Jackson turns around, you are like, yeah, you're the devil incarnate, and I'm scared shit of you. And it still scares me now to this day. I actually can't watch the Thriller video, and I'm a grown ass man. So yeah, so it's definitely left a lasting effect on me.
Cool. Fair enough. Well, funnily enough, you're not alone on Thriller, but we'll get to that. So, as I said, these are some of you listeners who've given us your responses. So we'll start off with Serendipity on Instagram. She said E.T. And she actually gave a little bit of background. She said, I cried so hard when he was in the bag that my mum took me out of the room and I refused to go back in. I didn't learn that he survived the movie for years. Had no idea why people loved that movie. Yeah, the ET, it's kind of distressing, that scene. It is. So I can understand that. Because I think I remember crying at the end of ET. No, not at the end. When he was dying on the table, that's when I cried. Yeah, when he was dying on the table, I cried a bit. I think ET left a lot of confused kids out there who saw it, because again, Spielberg he's just a bastard. Like, he doesn't care about your kids. You need to learn that, parents, from now. He don't care. Like, he'll lull you into a false sense of security. He'll tell you, yeah, don't worry, this is fine. It's a kiddies movie. And then he'll pull off some horrible, strenuous shit. And you're just like, what? I thought this was supposed to be for kids. Like, why is the hero dying? What's going on? Like, so yeah, E.T. completely understandable. Shout out to Orlando Alley from the Orlando Alley Show. He said Strangers. Gergeroff from Instagram also said Nightmare on Elm Street. Shout out to J Dreams. He said The Terminator. Mr. O said Thriller as well, Rich. He also said that his family used to use Thriller to get him to do things. So, for example, they would tell him to go get a drink for somebody. He would say, no, he don't want to. And they'd just say the word Thriller and he'd go and do it. I tell you, families are fuckery, Shout out to O Central, who said Nightmare on Elm Street. Taylor Made Zimbabwean said It. Midwich Cuckoo said Thriller, Salem's Lot, and Melting Nazis in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah, that's a good one. Raiders of the Lost again. Spielberg again, bro. This guy's a bastard, Shout out to Zach Kadri. He said The Fog and also The Omen. Insomniac's Cafe said Child's Play. Jabmaster J said Shivers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, proper classic. Parker.Hugh said The Exorcist. And Just in Time Podcast said Event Horizon. Listen, some of you lot had a fucked up childhood, if these were the movies you were watching. Yo, your childhood was a mess. Anyway, so that was our Instagram comment. So thank you very much to all the Instagrammers who got involved. Rich, do you want to grab the Facebook ones for me?
Yeah, of course. Alrighty. Okay, so shout out to everyone who's obviously got back to us with these answers. First off, I've got Andy Bleak, Doctor Who, Day of the Daleks, which is like, wow, okay,
classic episode.
That's pretty old school. He also said It and Pet Cemetery. So there's obviously a bit of a Stephen King theme running through there. We've got Alex, big up Alex, Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, the cigarette smoking man from the X-Files. Yeah, you know what? That's actually one that I've never heard of before, but I can understand why you find this person scary.
Yeah. Especially if you're of a certain age and and you're watching X-Files for the first time without any context, and there's just seems to be this malevolent force sitting in a chair, often, shrouded in silhouette, smoking cigarettes, who's causing chaos. And, you can understand why someone might be scared of that, especially if they're young. So, yeah, that's a good one. Okay. Sorry, go on.
No, sure. Next one we had Josiah, and his one, which is like, listen, we've got a lot of followers out there who are not from the UK, but trust me, man, like every kid of a certain generation will basically put their hands up and say, yeah, this shit the hell out of us as well. But it was the introduction to a show called Tales of the Unexpected.
Hmm.
The introduction to the show was scarier than the show itself, and the show was scary.
Yeah. I would love to see a remake of Tales of the Unexpected. Although I'm saying that in a sense that I'd like to see it, but I don't really want to see it. Especially if it's going to keep that same theme music. I really don't want to see it. That theme music was creepy as hell.
Yeah. So big up to Josiah for that. Jane, she said E.T. So I can only assume that you must be talking about the whole of E.T. So James, we've got Muppets Christmas Carol, so the Ghost of Christmas Future. And I have to admit, I don't think I've actually seen any of the Muppets films. I was a big fan of the TV show, and and the Muppets, the Muppets cartoons or Muppet Babies, whatever. But I don't think I've ever seen any of the actual movies. So I'm actually gonna have to peep that to see how scary it is.
Yeah, again, I can understand that, because if you're a certain age and you're watching that, it is quite scary. The Ghost of Christmas Future is always quite intense. I mean, if you're familiar with the Christmas Carol story in general, then even if you go back to the original tale by it was Charles Dickens, wasn't it?
It was Charles Dickens.
Dickens. Even if you go back to the original tale by Charles Dickens, the Ghost of Christmas Future was always the most intense part of the story and the scariest part of the story. And the Muppets do, damn good job of it. So yeah, that's definitely worth watching, that one, I would say. Cool. That's it for Facebook, yeah?
Yep, that's it, Facebook.
Cool. All right. We'll go into the Twitter answers now. So thanks again to everybody on Twitter who got involved. We've got some quite diverse answers here as well, which I quite like. So we'll start off with the main man, Kale. Big up to you. He said his first kind of scary movie memories are watching Aliens and Halloween, the John Carpenter version. Launching the pilot said Space 1999, and particularly an episode called Dragon's Domain. I had not heard of that episode at all, so I actually had to go and look it up. And it is quite intense for TV. Like it's Space 99, by the way, 1999, by the way, for those outside of the UK, is a very old British sci-fi TV show. And it's kind of intense, man. Like the BBC and that, they never used to hold back in the day. Like they didn't play. And this was quite an intense episode. So yeah, that was a good shout. TV in Space said Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one. Jed, a big shout out to Jed. He said Chucky, the TV show, used to scare him.
That is old. Do you remember that show, Jed?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Listen, that was scary. That was scary, bro.
It was not an easy watch, Chucky, at all. So yeah, and he also said the theme song from Tales of the Unexpected, and we also spoke about the episode that freaks me out the most. It's the one that always sticks in my head from when I think of Tales of the Unexpected. The episode Royal Jelly. Remember the one, Rich, where it's about the bee people? And they're trying to increase their population, and bees kind of live in their mouths and things like that. As soon as they open their mouths, like bees come flying out and will sting people to death. Yeah, that was some nasty shit, man. That was crazy. So yeah, I mean, again, if you're not familiar with Tales of the Unexpected, listeners, and you want something to make your skin crawl, go and watch that show, man. I'm telling you. Shout out to Stacey's Parlor. She said E.T. as well. So again, Spielberg is messing with people's heads here. And Terminator 2, in particular, the nuke scene, where remember the dream sequence where Sarah Connor is watching the kids and then the nuclear explosion goes off.
Yeah.
And Sarah Connor gets, like, her skin kind of gets melted away from her, and there's just a skeleton holding onto the wire link fence. Stacey said she was quite young when she first saw that, and it really freaked her out. And I think, that effect is so intense as well, and it's so brilliantly done. Because we spoke about this on Twitter as well, and we were saying how the effects in general in Terminator 2 are just superb. Like, they still hold up to this day, and that scene in particular is an example of just how well James Cameron and his team worked on that movie. So yeah, definitely I can understand that one. Release the Clowns, they came up with two really good ones. They came up with Night of the Hunter and Cape Fear, as in the original Cape Fear, both of which starring Robert Mitchum,
Yeah.
who was, you know, a fantastic actor and just brilliant in both of those movies because he's just so freaking intense. Especially in like Night of the Hunter. I remember he has love and hate tattooed on each of his hands, and you know, just brilliant, man, absolutely brilliant. Michael Wong Gifts, which is my new favorite Twitter account because they do nothing but gifs of Michael Wong, and I love it. Said Aliens or Return to Oz, which I thought was an interesting one because Return to Oz is like, it's unnecessarily dark as well, which is what we were saying on Twitter. It's just
although
why?
but to be fair, you know what? The actual books for the like Wizard of Oz and everything, they're actually dark books anyway. True, I think the original was it the Disney film that was done with Judy Garland? I think that, well, if not Disney, but that film that we all know, that was like very, very light-hearted and compared to the books. I think the books actually might be closer to the source material than what we're used to. But nevertheless, that shit was still scary, man. That was just mean. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, definitely. Return to Oz was yeah, man, it was just unnecessarily dark. Well, as Rich said, it's not unnecessarily dark, but still, yeah, that's understandable. Comics in Motion said Jaws. Genuine Chit Chat said The Blair Witch Project. Piping Hot Tea said Children of the Corn, which is another one that bothered me as well because I saw that quite young. Sharp the podcast said Hammer's House of Horror.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you remember that, right?
Yeah.
That was an awesome TV series, but yeah, that was kind of creepy as well. Rick Bebop said the Incredible Hulk TV show. I'm glad I'm not alone. Thank you, Rick. Ending Pending said Matilda, and in particular the Chokey. I remember watching Matilda with my little sister, and she was terrified of the Chokey. So yeah, that's the I can understand that. And last but not least, Blobbernob said The Night of the Demon, which is like way old school as well, way and obscure, man. That's like early 90s video shop obscure, bro. The Night of the Demon is proper old school. So yeah, shout out to you for coming up with that one. So again, thank you everybody for getting involved, man. And as said, we had some really brilliant answers here. As said, I am also concerned about some of the childhoods that you had, given some of the answers you've given us. It seems like some of you have been watching shit you shouldn't have been watching, but it's understandable, I think. But E.T., man, E.T.'s had like 3 votes, bro.
Yeah.
As said, Spielberg is a son of a bitch. He really is. I'm sorry, Stephen, if you're listening, but you are. Like, you hurt a lot of people's childhoods with your madness, man. Because I mean, in our Richard and I are members of a WhatsApp group, and we were talking about Poltergeist, the movie, and how that movie has freaked out like most of us in the group. And that movie, when it came out, I believe had a PG as well. Like, in fact, I think I may be wrong, but I think that Poltergeist was the movie that prompted the American censors to come up with another censorship category outside of R, because PG was obviously way too low for this movie. Because a lot of people were taking their kids to go and see it and things like that because it was a Spielberg movie and because it was rated PG, and then not realizing what the hell they were getting themselves into. Because there's some really intense scenes in that film. I mean, we talked about the meat that moves along the counter by itself and then explodes into maggots. The dude who starts digging his face out in front of the mirror and stuff. It's just it's crazy, man. Spielberg's got a lot to answer for, man.
He's a meanie. In real life, he's a meanie.
He's mean. The guy's just mean. All right, well, that's going to do it for us for this episode. Thanks a lot for listening. Rich Kid, do you want to let people know where they can find you at?
Yes, Instagram, Rich Reviews, and also Instagram, Wulong Talks. If you want to head over to our blog as well, www.wulongtalks.com. And we've also got Wulong Talks on Twitter and Wulong Talks on Tumblr as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just want to say a couple of quick things before we go as well. Just a quick thank you to Rob Wade and the guys over at emotionally14.com. Thanks for all the help with everything. They plug us every week, every time we do a new episode. So thank you very much. Make sure you head over to their website as well. Again, you'll find details of that at the end of this podcast, but it's well worth a visit. Also, thanks a lot to the Britpod Scene crew, who also offer us lots of support and guidance as well, and help to get Wulong Talks out there. So if you like what we do, then definitely go and head out to the Britpod Scene and check out what they've got too. And also, yeah, just to let you know that we've got the Bebop Rewatch, which will be restarting again very, very soon. We're apologies for the breaks in between there. We've just had different life stuff going on. But we'll be up to session 4, and session 4 will be with you very soon as well. So if you're a Cowboy Bebop fan, and you know what, even if you're not a Cowboy Bebop fan, give it a listen. Check it out. You never know. You might like it. You might be interested in checking out one of the greatest anime series ever made. So make sure you look out for a new episode of the Bebop Rewatch soon. Okay, that's going to do it for us this time. So let's get the hell out of here. Rich, say goodnight.
Sayonara.
And I'm saying goodnight too, and I'm out of here, people. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next week. Peace. Thanks for listening to us. If you're down with Wulong Talks, show some love by following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Wulong Talks. You can also find us online at www.wulongtalks.com or drop us an email at wulongtalkspodcast@gmail.com. We can also be found as part of the Britpod Scene Collective, and we're also officially E14 endorsed. Search for those hashtags to enjoy more content from us and from other great British podcasters.